me. So we'll start practice by getting settled and landing in ourselves. So find a seat for yourself where you can sit comfortably and your spine feels free for several minutes. And that can be either on the floor or even in a chair. And once you find yourself sitting well, then go ahead and close your eyes and bring your attention to your breath. Listening to the breath, feeling the breath. Being focused on that experience of inhaling to fill up and exhaling to empty out. Enjoying that synchronization between the body and the breath that happens without any effort or thought. And as we bring our attention to the breath, notice it getting deeper and slower. And continuing with that deepening as you find your way gently and progressively to a full but sustainable breath. And as you're tuning inward, focusing on your breath, also noticing how your body feels. Noticing any tension or restriction, maybe around the neck, shoulders, and upper back area. See if there's any softening in that area that you could invite. Notice any sensations, constrictions, comfort in the hips, in the low back area. And then also noticing the arms and the legs and how they feel. Notice the emotional and mental tone that you have as we start this practice. Again, we'll set aside any temptations to evaluate or judge or critique ourselves, just getting a sense of where we begin practice, recognizing how you feel. And then you can take a moment to choose an intention for yourself for this practice today. So what feels important to you that your practice can be a step towards strengthening your determination to cultivate that intention, to bring it to fruition. And what is it that you could hold as an intention for the practice that would make your practice feel especially relevant to you right now? Just holding that in your attention for a few moments. And then I'll also invite you to join me in a collective intention to recognizing in your practice all the ways that we feel connection. A lot of what I'll share with you today focuses on connecting to yourself more deeply, but also just recognizing that when we do the work to live fully into ourselves, connecting with our whole being, it is from this space that we can open ourselves up more fully to connection to the world around us, to those around us. This deep connection and appreciation and even love for ourselves allows us to be most open-hearted, compassionate, and caring with all the other beings on this planet, in this universe. Bring your hands together in front of your heart, and I invite you to join me in chanting Om as a way to connect the energy between you and I and all of those who are joining me. If you don't want to chant, then please, I invite you to just listen and feel the vibration enter you with the sound. Let's take a preparatory breath first, so a nice big full breath in. And then exhale out. We'll inhale in and then we'll Om. Okay, please open your eyes, lower your hands, and we'll start staying in our seat. I want to do a little work with the shoulders in terms of building awareness and maybe creating some space before we do the first postures, which will work into the shoulders and holding that. So on your inhale, please draw your shoulders towards each other in front of you and then lift them up towards your ears. And then as you exhale, draw your shoulder blades together and roll your shoulders down and back. And then inhale, bring them forward and up. And exhale, roll them back and down. And we'll do 3 more breaths. Use your natural breath pace. Let the movement originate at the breath. When you're finished with those 5 breaths on your next inhale, draw your shoulders towards each other behind you and lift them up towards your ears, and then exhale, roll them forward and down. And inhale back and up, and exhale forward and down. And do 3 more breaths. Again, at your breath pace. Just feeling that movement in the shoulder, feel the stretching sensations, growing feelings of some space, maybe in the back. Okay, and then bring yourself back to a feeling of neutrality in the shoulders. You need to circle the head or move around if you feel any tension or gripping that's started. It's not always the most graceful feeling of movements. So now I just want to do a little work with the neck as well. So what we'll do is we'll keep the eyes open for this, and I'd like you to just look straight ahead, and I'll invite you as we move the head that you let the gaze sort of follow in that direction, moving at the same time as the head is moving versus looking ahead or looking back. Okay, so take a nice big full inhale in here. And then as you exhale, slowly rotating your head to the right and turning your gaze to the right as well at the same pace. And then inhale, the gaze and the head come back to face forward. As you exhale, this time the head turns to the left, as does the gaze. And then inhale, bringing the head and the gaze back to face forward. Again, exhaling to the right this time. Bringing yourself to a comfortable edge of stretch. Maybe feel the space between the left shoulder and the left jaw. And then inhale, come back to face forward with the head and the gaze. Exhale, turning your head and your gaze to the left. Inhale, bringing the gaze and the head back to face forward. Exhale, turning the gaze and the head to the right. Inhale, coming back to face forward. Exhale, turning the gaze and the head to the left. Inhale, the gaze and the head come back to face forward. On your next exhale, begin to lower the gaze and the chin towards your chest. Feel that stretch in the back. And then inhale, lifting the gaze and the head back up. Exhale, lift the chin and the gaze up towards the ceiling. And then inhale, bring the gaze and the chin back to center. Exhale, lowering the chin and the gaze again towards your chest. Inhale, the gaze and the chin come back up to center. Exhale, lifting the chin and the gaze. Inhale, bringing both back to center. Exhale, lowering the chin and the gaze. Inhale, chin and gaze back to center. One more time. Inhale, lift the chin and the gaze up towards the ceiling. Exhale, lowering the chin and the gaze to face forward. Great. Just take a moment to notice how the upper area of the torso feels around the neck and the jaw and the shoulders. And we'll come into our first yin pose, which is a pose called thread the needle pose. You might want a blanket nearby to help support your head.
So what I'd like you to do is come onto your hands and knees, placing your knees right under your hips and your wrists right under your shoulders. On your inhale, reach that right arm way out, straight out from the shoulders, and then as you exhale, you're going to sweep that arm between the left wrist and the left knee, laying the back of the arm and the shoulder down on the floor. Turn your head to the left and lay the right side of your head down on the floor. Okay, so the blanket is where this can be helpful. Setting the blanket right up against the shoulder. Try not to have the, well, you can do it in a way that feels comfortable for you, but if you have the shoulder against the blanket versus on the blanket, then it lifts up the head so the head and the neck don't feel like they're overstretching to drop down towards the floor. So just tune into how this feels for you. So the left hand and left forearm are resting in front of you. And notice how you're balancing your weight on your knees. See if you can level that out a little bit between the left knee and the right knee. And then if this feels kind of uncomfortable for the knees, or you want to experience a different edge, you could just drop your hips back towards your heels to whatever extent is possible. So coming into more of a shape of a child pose, and notice how this shifts the stretch in the shoulder and the arm. And this will be a pose that will hold for about 3 minutes. So please make sure that you don't feel super uncomfortable. Not that there won't be any discomfort. And settling in here. Right, so starting to continue to drop the attention inward, feeling the shift, right, noticing when the thoughts move away from being internally focused on the body, on the sensations within the body, The breath can be a great anchor to bring you back to the present moment. Dropping the hips back takes some of the weight out of the arms and shoulder, which can feel better. So this pose targets the heart meridian. The heart meridian helps us feel when the flow of energy is balanced, we feel healthy in the connections that we're making. We feel connected. Just take a moment for yourself to think about what that means for you. What does it mean to feel connected? What does it physically feel like in your body? And does it feel hard to answer that question? Because sometimes it does. I just invite you throughout the practice to ask yourself that question and see if it changes over the course of practice. And if you find yourself drifting away with your thoughts, just bringing yourself back. And without a lot of judgment, being as compassionate as you can. So bring your left hand down and under your left shoulder and press into that palm to bring yourself up and out of the pose. Feel free to sit back on your heels or stand on your knees and take any movement or stillness that you need to release that pose and come back to some neutral sensations in the body, or if you're continuing to feel some resonating sensations, just pausing for a moment, tuning into those. And let's take the pose to the other side. Right, so standing on the hands and knees once again. On this inhale, reaching that left arm straight out from the shoulder and then sweeping it on your exhale between the right wrist and the right knee. And laying the back of the arm on the floor, laying your left side of your head to the floor, dropping the hips back if that feels like the right thing for you to do in your body. Left forearm can be on the floor beside your head. Right forearm, sorry. So we're creating asymmetry in this shape. So we'll have different sensations on different sides of the body. So notice what the sensations are on the right side of the body, from the toes up to the crown of the head. And then notice what the sensations are on the left side of your body, from your toes up to the crown of your head. And then just asking yourself, how can I more deeply connect to how I'm feeling within myself right now? And you don't have to try and figure out the answer, just ask the question and listen. Beginning to descend beyond the superficial layers of our being to the deeper ones, to the subtle body. Notice how things evolve on this side of the pose. Sometimes sides will feel different. One side will feel more easeful and the other will feel more challenging. I'm just noticing how that is for you. And bringing that right hand down under the right shoulder so you can press yourself up, sitting back on your knees or standing on your knees if it's hard, just sitting back on your heels if that's hard, standing on your knees, just to give yourself some freedom in the upper back area. And just take a few breaths in stillness. Okay, we'll move on to the next pose, which is dragon pose. Hang on to that blanket if you were using it in the last pose, because it might be nice to have under the back knee. I invite you to come into the pose by standing up on your knees, and you may also be interested in having blocks in front of you, or books if you don't have blocks, something that you could have elevate a placement for your hands above the mat. So standing on your knees, let's start with the right foot. So stepping the right foot forward, keeping the foot and the knee and the hip aligned. So you don't want to have that right foot in the center. You want to have it lined up nicely with the right leg. And then you could take the left leg back slightly, or to a point where you feel like I'll be able to either fold, stay up standing, or fold forward and not be intensely uncomfortable for about 3 minutes. Right, this is a pose that can be fairly edgy. So you want to create space for yourself to be here for time, right? Remembering the gift of this practice is not deep stretching, it's time. You're actually intending to go deeper than the muscles. Right? So the easiest way to give yourself that space is drawing the hips back. So bringing the center of gravity behind you a little bit more, so that the back leg, the left leg in this case, is bearing more of the weight versus deepening the compression into that right hip and the stretch to the front of the left hip flexor. So see if you can find some quiet and stillness around the sensations and feelings that you're having in this pose. Is it possible to listen beyond the discomfort while still
allowing yourself to experience it. Where can you connect to yourself in this shape? Beyond the physical sensations, if possible. And if it's not possible, just recognizing that, being curious about why that might be. And then go ahead and draw your hips back. So now you're giving yourself some space for that right foot to come back. If you're up on blocks, bringing your hands to the floor and then taking some movement or stillness. Sometimes child pose can feel really nice. Sometimes down dog feels nice. Move away from that deep compression into the right hip. Maybe a little bit of each. And then we'll bring ourselves to take the other side when you feel ready, when you feel like you have a bit of neutral awareness. So coming up onto the knees, this time step the left foot forward, again, knee, foot, hip lined up. You can drop the right leg back if you choose. You can also leave it here. That's the same as keeping the weight back, right? Folding forward if you'd like. This is another way to manage the sensations, right? Just to stay up higher, again, bringing the center of gravity backwards. You can also not have blocks and have your upper body really folded over that left knee. Or tucking the left knee up into the armpit. You can put some pressure into the lymph glands that are in the armpit. And being open to feel your way into the quiet and stillness around the stronger sensations. can I connect to what I'm experiencing in this moment? Can I find awareness more deeply into myself? Okay, so again, drawing the hips back to come out of the pose. We have space to take that left foot back. And find your transition movement or stillness. Take a few nice deep breaths wherever you are. Okay, so the next pose will be a seated forward fold called Dragonfly. So you can use a blanket or two, just sit up, elevating the hips above the legs. Which can just, it's all about sort of making space in the hips for the forward fold, excuse me. Taking the legs wide. Something else that can be supportive too for giving space for folding is to shorten the hamstrings slightly by bending your knees and giving yourself something to rest the bent knees on. Okay, and before I fold, I'm going to tune into that awareness. Sorry about that. I'm going to tune into the awareness of my upper body's weight being held through the hips, being held by the floor. Right, so you feel that in sensations of pressure into the hip bones, right? You can feel the weight dropping down. So there's a sense of here's where my center of gravity is, I'm anchored, I'm stable. And I'd like you to see if you can continue to feel into that as you fold forward. Right, so coming forward, but keep feeling that pressure on the sits bones. Don't let the sits bones lift up. And find your edge of folding. So feeling very welcome to use any kind of props to support yourself in this. Whether it's support for the head, support for the whole front of the body, whatever you need to be able to soften into this pose. For the next several minutes. So now we're just past halfway through the practice. Be an interesting time to ask yourself the question again, what does connecting to myself feel like right now? What does connection mean to me right now? Being
relaxed enough with your intellectual mind to let that be an awareness that grows from your other senses as well as from the brain. We slow ourselves down, give ourselves this gift of time and space. We can begin to feel our deeper layers of being. We can feel the vibrational quality of prana, of our life force, that energy that animates us, whose primary vehicle is the breath. And at our deepest, most pure layer, that energy, that essence is completely pure, free of all stories. And then we can recognize that as the same energy that animates all other living things. And we can begin to see and feel that in other living things. We can recognize ourselves and others as one and the same. We can know our interdependence, our interconnection. With every other human, every other animal, every insect, every plant, every tree, every body of water. Very gently and slowly making your way back upright. Again, find your transitional movement or stillness. If you need to, you can take a moment or two in tabletop to help re-stabilize the musculature around the spine, supportive infrastructure there. And then we'll take Sphinx pose. So that is the pose where you lie down on the front of your body.
taking the feet wide to the outer edges of your mat. Coming up onto your forearms. Noticing how this feels, and if it feels too intense into the low back, walking the elbows forward so you feel that rib cage connect to the floor and some of the compression come out of the low back. Feel free to support under the head with a block or a book. Find the edge that you want to start at, and feel free to, as things soften and release, particularly around the seat and the belly and the low back, deepen the pose by drawing the elbows closer to being under the shoulders. If you ever in any of these poses feel any tingling sensations or sharp shooting pain, please come out of the pose. This is also a practice of making that discernment between discomfort and pain. Discomfort, we have an opportunity to play with, and we're building our resilience with it. And lowering our defensive reactions to it. But we don't want pain, we don't want to hurt ourselves. We have stories about no pain, no gain, which have no role whatsoever in this practice. Very ingrained message in our culture. Pushing ourselves beyond our limits is good. Everything else is just being lazy. That's what we tell ourselves. So if you'd like to, for the remaining 2 minutes of the pose, and it's accessible to you, you can bring your hands out to the edges of your mat, spreading your fingers so that your index fingers pointing towards the top of the mat, and press into the hands and lengthen the arms, bringing yourself into a seal pose. This may or may not be accessible. It's fine if it isn't, just stay in Sphinx pose. But if you do come into seal, and again, working with that idea of softening around the low back, softening in your seat, in your belly. Go ahead and lower your whole front body down to the floor, resting your head on your hands or on the mat. Noticing how you feel. If it feels interesting and appealing to you, you could rock your hips from side to side. So notice if there's any ripping sensation that it might feel nice to try and rock away. Bring your legs back towards each other. So we're coming to a plank pose for 3 breaths, and you can do this either on your forearms or on your hands, lengthening your arms long. You can do it on your knees as well, just keeping the upper body drawn over the hands or the elbows so that the upper body is doing a lot of the lifting. But also lifting the legs, draw the belly back up towards the spine, and just take 3 steady breaths here. This plank on forearms is also a pose called crocodile pose, which sometimes we can hold for up to 1 minute in, but for right now, we're just doing a little restabilizing around the back. So we just needed a few breaths here. And then you can make your way towards child pose, right? Maybe taking the knees wide for this one and touching toes together. Bringing the forehead towards the floor, the outer edges of the belly towards your thighs. Arms can be out in front or they can be alongside the body. What way can you hold this shape, take this shape to amplify that connection that you're feeling to yourself? And maybe even more deeply to the world around you. What does connection feel like right now for you in this moment? Then making your way up to your hands and knees and finding your way onto your backs. Do a really brief pose of happy baby. So bending the knees and drawing them towards your chest and lifting the feet up towards the ceiling. See if you can reach up and grab onto the feet. You can grab onto through the insides of the feet or the outsides of the feet. If it's really hard to reach the feet, holding on to the ankles or the shins, and really the intention is to use the weight of the shoulders dropping back, to use gravity to draw the legs towards the outside of the body and down towards the floor. So we'll take about 2 minutes here. Just doing a little bit more edginess, edging into the hip area, down near the root chakra, that chakra that's associated with our survival, our sense of safety and security, and scarcity and abundance. Maybe bringing to mind the idea of connecting with play in the way that babies connect with play and very organic, natural movement. Whatever extent you want to add some movement in, rocking side to side, can put some interesting pressure around the kidney region. In terms of a little massage from the floor. Also bend the knees and bring the hips down towards, bring the feet down towards your seat. Play is one of the great ways of just being. Play doesn't have any outcomes or expectations. One of our more unprescribed activities are ways of being, of finding perhaps connection as opposed to your sense of playfulness. Release your feet, slowly let them come down to the floor. Lengthen your legs long and begin to make your way into Shavasana pose. So supporting yourself with any props that you need to make yourself fully comfortable and relaxed. Letting your full back body connect to the floor or those props. And thinking about relaxing your weight even more deeply towards the floor. Closing your eyes. And just floating in that connection you've created for yourself. With practice, I will bring us back together in a few minutes with a reading and a chant. And let's practice together for now. Staying where you are. Consider the other kingdoms. The trees, for example, with their mellow-sounding titles, oak, aspen, willow. Or the snow, for which the peoples of the north have dozens of words to describe its different rivals. Or the creatures, with their thick fur, their shy and wordless gaze, their infallible sense of what their lives are meant to be. Thus the world grows rich, grows wild, and you too grow rich, grow sweetly wild, as you too were born to be. The Other Kingdoms by Mary Oliver. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Kalavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Take a few nice deep full breaths. Starting to bring some movement back into the physical body. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Working your way to bigger movements. Circling wrists and ankles. Moving elbows and knees. Maybe reaching the arms up and overhead and through the toes and the feet and the fingertips. Finding big stretches to fully and completely wake back up into yourself. And then when you're ready, draw your knees into your chest. Wrap your arms around your knees. Feeling that embrace. Feeling gratitude that's just for you. That sense of connection. And when you feel ready, rolling over onto your side. Taking your time. In your own way, finding your way up to seated. So you can sit comfortably with your eyes closed, and we will close the practice together. Please bring your hands together in front of your heart. Let's take one more breath together. Nice big full breath in. Exhaling fully out. And then we'll inhale in and out. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be happy and free. Shivamastu. I wish you only good things. And thank you so much for practicing with me today. I hope that you found benefit